BRI Youth Group is a nonprofit founded in March 2020 under Bridge Road International Foundation. The youth group gives students the chance to utilize their talents, abilities, and leadership to serve their local community. Because of the pandemic, hospitals have been in need of protective equipment such as face masks for the past few months. To help provide support, a group of over 10 student volunteers worked together to hand make 400 face masks and 400 nurse caps out of cloth, as well as thousands of face shields. And we sent the equipment to over 20 hospitals, including Washington Hospital and Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. And in addition, we donated lunches to hospital workers through our Food of Love Day program.
Thanks, Heidi. Hello, everyone. My name is Raymond, the other president. So the BRI Youth Group has not only been working diligently to help the community by making face masks, but we have also been creating programs to help students whose education has been affected by a lack of resources. We offer more than 30 classes for K through 8 students in the subjects of English, math, computer science, music, and art. And they're taught by over 50 high school volunteers who are very willing to help the students. We have over 200 students from different states, and even some that come from outside the US. And we also make sure to assist students with special needs to make sure that it doesn't hinder their learning. If you would like to find out more information regarding our classes or volunteer opportunities, please go to the website below, BRI Youth Group, briyouth.org.
Thanks, Raymond and Heidi. So, just a reminder for all the new people joining, if you have any questions during the Q&A session, just submit it through slido.com with the event code 60808. So we are very happy to have a Cornell graduate to talk about his college and career experiences. He grew up in Fremont, California, and graduated from Irvington High School in 2013. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kevin Huey.
Thanks, Sean. Let me share my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation. Let's see. All right, sharing. Yeah, so like Sean already said, I graduated from Cornell in 2017. Oh, and just some background about me. I'm Sean's cousin. That's why I'm here. And I thought that it would be informational for you guys if I just talked about what I've been doing since after high school, basically. It's been 7 years, so kind of a while, but not that long. And I know that going to college or applying to college, getting into college, going to college, finding an internship, getting a job, becoming an adult, it's a really crazy, very transformative time in your life. So it's also very hectic and not very much direction. So hopefully if I share my experience, it'll give you some insight. Just one disclaimer is that I'm from a very particular background, right? So it doesn't necessarily apply to all of you, but I'm assuming everyone that's on the call also grew up in the Bay Area, also is from, similar backgrounds, so hopefully it will help. So anyways, back to Cornell. I graduated in 2017. I got a bachelor's of arts and a master's of engineering in 4 years, both in computer science. We can take a look at the beautiful campus and how sunny it is. So Cornell University is in Ithaca, New York, which is upstate New York. Most people that hear New York, they think about the city, New York City, but this is very, very far from New York City. It's like 4.5-hour drive. You can take a bus back and forth, which I've done a couple times, but it's really out of the way. Yeah, you can see that the campus is really beautiful. But one big disclaimer is that that video that I just showed you is just college marketing, propaganda almost, because Cornell is not that sunny well, it is for the summer from June to August, but you're there for the rest of the year when it's cold. So I want to talk about basically during those 4 years, I kind of had this split in my life where I had the curricular, which was the classes, and then the extracurricular, which is everything that wasn't school, etc. For the curricular, I guess my background is I studied computer science and math. These are like the classes that I took. So I just went through their general curriculum. They give a little bit of flexibility in terms of what you take to fulfill your degree. There's a couple of core classes that they require you to take, which is how it is for every major. And then on top of that, you can choose your specialization. For me, I chose like databases and systems, for example, but there's like a whole bunch of other specializations within computer science and other majors as well. I also took a bunch of classes for fun. So I was in the College of Arts and Sciences. So if you noticed before, I was saying I have a Bachelor's of Arts. And I chose this deliberately because I value a lot of subjects other than engineering and STEM. So for example, I took philosophy, nutritional science, physics of music, I took some language classes, and I think that it's really valuable to make you a well-rounded person. Also, like, for example, nutritional science, I use that every day, right? Whenever I eat, whenever I make food, I like reference back to my nutritional science course. So much so that my friends are kind of annoyed with me when I'm like, oh, like fiber has 2 different kinds of fiber, and that's why we need to eat both broccoli and whatever else. For school, what else is valuable to talk about? Picking a major, I think I can probably delve more into this in the Q&A later. Oh, just to plug it, I know Sean said it multiple times, but I'm also watching the kind of list of questions grow right now. So just to pace myself so I know when to stop for Q&A, make sure to go to slido.com and use this code to post questions I can answer later. But anyways, picking a major. So at Cornell, you don't have to declare your major until the end of your second year, so end of sophomore year, which is a good and bad thing. So, for example, I was in the College of Arts and Sciences. So for the first 4 semesters, I was able to take any class in the College of Arts and Sciences and basically declare any major, which could have been like biology or chemistry or math or computer science. So I like that because the College of Arts and Sciences was really large and had a lot of like different choices that I could choose from. So at the end of my sophomore year, I had a plethora of choices. But the bad thing about that was that going for an internship was really difficult because I kind of knew I wanted to do computer science, but I also wasn't sure of it. So I was taking a bunch of like general education courses because I didn't want to take computer science courses in case I didn't want to do computer science. So because I did so many general ed courses, I didn't know any computer science. So therefore I was less employable than everyone else. And then I'll talk more about that after this when we talk about like internships and jobs and stuff like that. Being a TA, I recommend it. I wasn't a TA. A lot of my friends were. They got paid. They got credits. They basically got to like reinforce the subject that they were being a TA for. And for those of you that don't know what a TA is, it's a teacher's assistant. So in college, these courses are really large, like on the order of hundreds of people. So they need a bunch of students to basically help them grade and host recitations, teach other kids. And being a TA is really, really good. I recommend it. Office hours. So most professors and TAs have office hours. So like between the hours of like 4 and 5 on Thursdays, I will be in my office and you can come in and talk to me and ask me questions. Really, really take advantage of office hours. I didn't. I really regret it. There's just so many times that I didn't understand the topic and I would just kind of like flail around for a while and then like do a terrible job on whatever it was when I could have just gone office hours and had my questions answered. Let's see. Other majors, other classes, skipping classes. I'll skip other majors and other classes, but talk about skipping classes. So I thought it would be relevant to bring this up. So college is the first time you're gonna have like so much freedom, compared to everything up until now. No one is responsible for you other than yourself, right? If you don't go to class, no one's gonna care, which is a good and a bad thing again, right? Because if I'm too tired, too sick, too lazy, whatever the reason, I can just stay in. But that also means that I'm gonna miss out on the class, right? I'm gonna have to either make up the work later or not make up the work later and then not do well in the class, right? And that's completely up to you, which is a great freedom to have. I think that it's easier and easier to skip classes after you do it the first time. So I would try to not skip classes, but know that it's basically your prerogative, right? To do well in school, right? Because you're at school to get a degree, you're paying for it. If you really do the math, like a class is worth $200 or whatever, depending on the school you go to. So like, do you really want to skip that $200 class? Maybe. Anyways, extracurricular. So this is stuff that I did outside of school. So Cornell has this thing called a project team. Basically, it's a student-run organization that gets money from the school to pursue engineering projects. You have to get a sign-off from a faculty member, but as long as you get that, you can literally do anything. So the project team I did, sorry, I'm going to drink some water. So the project team I did was building a nanosatellite. It was really cool. We were funded by the Air Force Research Laboratory to build a satellite that would launch to the International Space Station and then get kicked out into orbit and then analyze the Earth's ozone layer and then report information back to us. It was really cool. We got to work with like real NASA engineers and deal with really expensive equipment. It was really stressful. It was completely student run, like I said. We didn't really work with any professors. And there's a ton of other project teams at Cornell as well, other than the one I just talked about. There's ones for like building cars, there's ones for building motorcycles, there's ones for building apps, there's ones for building bridges, but they're all engineering. And what else did I do? Hackathons. So this is a computer science specific thing. So hackathons are these big events that are hosted by companies normally, where they kind of rent out a giant auditorium and a bunch of students come and they all compete by making some sort of app. And the person that makes the best app in 24 hours wins the hackathon. You get like some prize, money, fame, fortune, I don't know. But they're really fun. You stay over 24 hours. It's really tiring, but I wouldn't do it anymore because I'm older and I can't code for 24 hours straight anymore. But when I was 18, it was a lot of fun. And then I think, like I was talking about before, I think like having a well-rounded schedule is really important, like to be a well-rounded person. So I also did other things other than school and work. I did martial arts. I was part of the Cornell Wushu team. I did open mic nights. I played like violin and piano. And I sang. I played chess. I did a whole bunch of other things. I had friends, which leads me into like other things, right? So there's like frats and sororities. There's clubs, whether to live on and off campus. So like there's all these sorts of things to also consider that impact your life that aren't actually school. So frats and sororities, I wasn't part of, not because I have anything against them, but it just wasn't my scene. I knew a lot of people that were in them. The only thing I could really bring up was that my friends that weren't part of frats and sororities that went into frats and sororities I like kind of lost touch with them, because once you're in that kind of group of people, it's kind of like a tight-knit group of people is how I would describe it. They kind of stick to their own people, which is good, right? Because they make their own friends, but because they're so busy with whatever group they're part of, they didn't have time for people outside of that group. Clubs, highly recommend clubs. It's just like the best avenue to make friends. All right, everyone wants their club to grow bigger, so everyone will be super welcoming for you to join. Living on or off campus, I really enjoyed living off campus. So Cornell, you live on campus for the first year, mandatory. But then your second, third, and fourth year, you can do whatever you want. Being on campus is nice, like just for proximity for classes, right? You can just walk to class in less than 15 minutes. But it's too restrictive, in my opinion. You have an RA, which is a residential advisor. So it's typically an upperclassman that lives in the same dorm as you that enforces the rules. So like you can't be too loud. You can't, I don't know, can't have too many friends over. Not sure what else. Depends on the RA, but typically it's just nicer to not have someone breathing down your neck, if you know what I mean. Making friends is really important, right? Because depending on what school you go to, Cornell for me, I was the only one from my high school to go to Cornell, so I knew no one. And of the people that were from California, or of the people there, 10% of them were from California, maybe even less, 5%. So I basically knew no one. Making friends was really, really important to me because if you don't have friends, then you don't have a support network, which I'll go into later. And you also don't have the career connections either, which is kind of weird to think about, but friends really do help with career. And I'll go into that later on the career side as well. Lifestyle, I touched on this earlier. This is your first time setting your own schedule. So it's hard. For example, when I was a freshman, at one point I basically turned into a nocturnal creature. I would stay up all night doing who knows what and then sleep all day. And this went on for a week. And it was terrible, not only for school, but also for my health. So I just watch out, right? Because you don't have the set schedule that someone forces you to follow, you're going to end up doing wild things. Cool. Stop going forward. Okay. That was my college experience talk. I can cover more later in the Q&A, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about internships and jobs as well. So during and after Cornell, I had a couple of different work experiences. So I was an intern at 2 different companies. The smaller one called Incenta is in Redwood City, and then a slightly larger one called Amazon in Sunnyvale. And then I worked as a full-time employee at Amazon after the fact when I graduated, and then I switched to Google about a year after. And then I'm going to be working at DeepMind at the end of this year, which is based in London. I put a disclaimer here. Why did I? Oh yeah. The disclaimer here is that I'm only 25, so I'm not very experienced. I know there are a lot of parents, adults here that probably have work experience in years of how old I am. So don't take everything I say as the truth, but I think it's pretty relevant, especially since I'm fairly new to the industry. But anyways, just like the split in extracurricular and curricular, I'm going to do a split here where it's finding the internship or job and what to do during the internship or job. So finding an internship, I think the number one thing to do is is making myself valuable. So what that means is that people will only want to employ me if I have things that are employable, which is kind of a tautology, but basically, let me give a concrete example. So they have these things called career fairs at Cornell. where a bunch of companies come, they fill up an auditorium, and you go into the career fair. You're wearing like a suit and tie, and you walk up to their table and you say, "Hi, I'm new. Please give me a job." And then they say, "Why should I give you a job?" And then if you don't have any reasons, then they're going to be like, "Okay, next." Not that mean, but basically that. And that was kind of the experience I had, especially as I said before, when I was a freshman. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I kind of knew that I wanted to do computer science, but because I wasn't sure, I didn't really do computer science. So I'd go up to them, I'd be like, "Hey, I'd like a job." And they say, "Oh, do you know this, 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 and this?" And I'd say, "No." And it's like, "Okay, well, you should learn that and then come back next year." Um, so it was really important to make myself valuable. And the way I did that was, uh, learning this, 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 and this. And also doing extracurricular things like my project team. So once I did the project team, I noticed like a stark increase of responses, right? Because I would go up to them and say, "Hey, I want a job. By the way, I'm building a satellite." And they'd be like, "Oh, cool. Let me learn more about you. Do you want an interview?" That kind of thing. So that's really important. So you want to be employable. They're not going to employ you if you're not employable. Number two is that you want to lean on your friends, not just emotionally, which is really valuable, like really important, right? Because finding a job is really stressful. Like it's basically you're putting yourself out there, and people are going to judge your worth. Like, are you worth employing? And then you're going to get rejected a ton of times because it's really, really competitive nowadays. So leaning on your friends for the emotional support is really important. But also leaning on your friends for the professional support. So friends are also your network. Friends are like, they know you, and if they have opportunities, then they'll recommend you. And that's very valuable as well. For example, the project team I was talking about, I got that position through a friend. I think what happened was that their lead programmer basically left the team for whatever reason, and they really needed someone else. And my friend was like, "Hey, you know how to program C, right?" And I said, "Yes, I do," even though I didn't. And he let me onto the team, and then I figured it out from there. But if I didn't have my friend, I would not have gone in that project team position, and then I wouldn't subsequently have that experience on my resume. So that's just one example of many that I can cite. Oh yeah, don't just aim for the most competitive positions. I think that a lot of students kind of glorify these top tier positions, especially in tech. I'm not sure about. I know like banking and consulting and tech. Others. Well, I mean, I definitely those three have like top tier positions for at like these different companies. And those are by far the most competitive. So you don't want to just aim for those, right? Especially if you're new, right? How are you going to fare against people that are, 2-3 years ahead of you, have done 2-3 more years of work, right? So if you only aim for those, you're just going to get rejected by all of them. So one thing that I'm glad I did was I interned first at this place called Incenta. It's a very small company. It's in Redwood City. I commuted from Fremont. It was like an hour and a half both ways, but I had a job and it was great. It was really small. There were like 20 people. I learned a ton. They're really nice. So don't just aim for the most competitive positions. And I just wanted to bring up that, it's very intimidating and discouraging. I touched on this earlier. I can talk more about it later, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. Figuring out what I was and am worth is really important as well. I mean this in the most like financial sense. Money, what you're paid matters, and knowing what you should be paid matters. Especially for, you're not going to negotiate much for internships, but when you get a full-time position, you are going to negotiate like, oh, I want to be paid X amount more because I know that the job that I'm going to be doing is worth this much. And then if you get multiple job offers, then you can negotiate against each other or against companies with the multiple offers. And finally, picking a career. So in your internships, you're not necessarily picking a career yet. You're just sampling them, right? It's just a 3-month stint somewhere. So be flexible, go wherever, do whatever, and you'll find out whether you like it or not. And then from all of that, then you can kind of have a sense of what you want to do for your career. And we can talk more about that later in the Q&A as well. Let's see, how am I doing on time? It's like 7:30. We have 12 questions on the Slido. Okay, let's just blaze through this last one. During an internship, you want to learn. It kind of goes without saying, but I think one thing to point out is that you want to learn the social aspect and the professional aspect. Social means how do you like work with coworkers, and then professional is, you know, how do you work? You want to be able to communicate well. Everyone says that, but you do. Imposter syndrome and the Dunning-Kruger effect. I wanted to bring this up. So imposter syndrome, if you don't know what it is, it's you feel like you don't belong. You think that you're not good enough. I've definitely felt it. I'm sure a lot of people have. Just know that it exists, right? So you probably are good enough because you're there. So don't let imposter syndrome like hurt you. Dunning-Kruger effect is kind of the opposite. It's like people that don't know very much think they know a lot, and people that know a lot think they don't know very much. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. Look into it. There's a Wikipedia page on it. Be nice, and don't forget that everyone around you is also human, right? They have their own lives. They care about their own pay and their own family and their own significant others. They might have kids, right? Everyone's human. Well, that means be nice to them and don't be intimidated by them. Cool. I just wanted to touch one last thing. So I'm going to be moving to London at the end of this year. Going to be working at DeepMind. The reason why I bring this up is because after you finish job hunting, after you finish school, after you finish getting a job, then you're finally in the real world, living on your own, doing whatever, and you kind of lose all the structure that you had in your life, right? Because being in school is like very, very easy in the sense that it's not complicated. You study, you do well on the test, you get a good grade, you probably get a job, something like that. But then after you get out of school and you start working, again, you're even freer, right? Like you can do literally anything in your life. You could quit your job and backpack across the US if you wanted to. So I bring this up because while you're doing all of this, like getting into a good school, trying to do well at school, getting a good job, you kind of get like caught up in all of it, and just remind you that that's not what life is about, right? Life is about life. So for me, this big epiphany happened, and I was like, okay, it'll be cool. I should move to London. So then I did. Anyways, let's do Q&A. Or let me ask Sean if there's something else that we wanted to do.
No, Q&A sounds good right now.
Cool. I think we wanted to do some of the seniors questions first.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, cool. Oh, and just one more plug if you missed it. It's slido.com. The code is 60808, and I'll show up on this list and I'll answer them. Are we going to do the seniors questions out loud?
Yeah, I think you should go with Angela first.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your experience with college and with like internships and like job finding and stuff. So I had a question about internships too, but more in terms of in the college experience. So I was wondering what kinds of like internships and research opportunities are available for undergraduates, and like what kind of resources there are to find those opportunities, and if they're like available to freshmen.
Yeah, of course. So let me take it in two parts. So there's the internship, and then there's the research opportunities. So internships, there's a lot of freshman catered internships. typically offered by the bigger companies. So they realize, so these big companies, they realize that freshmen are at a disadvantage when applying to the same jobs as juniors and seniors, right? So they typically come out with these university programs that are specifically for freshmen and sophomores. So I know Google has one. I know Facebook has one. My answer is going to be very catered towards tech because that's what I know. But I'm sure that other majors and other companies have them as well. For the research opportunities, it's harder for freshmen, definitely. I think that research is pretty tricky because you need to get a good relationship with the professor that's leading the research laboratory, typically. And what that means is, I think the typical way to do that is to do well in their class, and then you get a good relationship with them, and then you just kind of ask them, like, hey, can I join your lab? As a freshman, I don't see why you wouldn't have that ability to. I don't think that there's a difference between being a freshman and being a junior in cultivating a relationship with a professor, right? It's just harder to do because there's no real set path for that. I think I know that a couple of my friends were in research labs as freshmen, so it's not out of the ordinary, but it's more typical to do as like upperclassmen from my experience. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, thank you. And also just like a second part to kind of the same question would be like, what kind of resources are there just for career and professional development?
Right. Okay, so Cornell had a career center. So they had a bunch of people in the career center that would do resume critiques. They had a bunch of clubs that liaisoned with companies. So that's another reason why to join clubs. So these clubs as an organization typically reach out to companies, or companies reach out to them, and then they hold events like the career fair that I mentioned earlier. My experience, the career center wasn't that valuable. They do these resume reviews that kind of tell you what you already know because they're so general, right? They try to cater towards every student in the entire university, so they can't really help you with computer science specific advice, for example. I think my most valuable resource were my friends that were also in the same industry or career as me. They would give me the best advice. They'd be like, oh, I just interviewed with XYZ company. This is what it was like, right? That's very, very specific and very, very catered toward what you're looking for. Upperclassmen are really good for that too. So there's like, you can just meet an upperclassman and they can tell you their experience, or you can join like a professional club. So they have those at Cornell, and I'm sure they have them at all other universities as well. So like a business fraternity or a computer science specific club where they do like mentorship programs. Those are also very valuable as well. Cool.
Okay, thank you. And should I ask my second question, or should someone else go first?
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah.
I think we have enough time since you're here. Let's just do this one. So
college traditions.
Yeah. So Cornell does. So there's the 161 things to do at Cornell. That's like it's referencing. So Cornell has this very big clock tower. That's pretty iconic. It was in the video that I showed earlier. And there's 161 steps from the bottom to the top. So that's why there's 161 things to do at Cornell. And I think like half of them are really hard to do, but the other half is really easy. So I think I've done something like 90 of them without even trying. So that was cool. There are a bunch of other ones, like Cornell and Harvard have a rivalry in hockey. So whenever they play hockey with each other, Cornell brings a bunch of, so you're not allowed to bring fish, like raw fish. They like pat you down and everything, but people find ways to sneak fish into the games. And then during halftime, they throw the fish onto the ice. That's always fun. Trying to think what else. I think there's a lot of ones with fraternities and sororities. but I'm not too familiar with those. I think a lot of them involve like walking through the cold without any like jackets or anything. But yeah, cool.
Thank you. So I think we're going to go on to the next person.
Jerry. Jerry, it's your turn to ask a question. Jerry, are you there? Okay, well, Raymond, can you go?
Yeah, sure. So again, thank you, Kevin, for your presentation so far. So my question is about how difficult is it to switch between different colleges inside Cornell if you change your mind about your major later on?
I think it's pretty difficult. So switching between colleges typically requires a petition, and also I think administrator approval. So it's doable. I have a friend that did it. He was in AIM, which is like a business college, and they switched to the College of Engineering. But the reason why it's so difficult is because there's not much overlap between the two. So to switch colleges, you have to convince the administrator that you're not wasting time and that you know what you're doing. I think that typically you need to do it early, if at all. So that's why, for example, I chose the College of Arts and Sciences because I knew that it would be difficult to switch colleges, but I still wanted to have a lot of majors available to me, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess I can follow up just a short
Sure.
second question. So is there like any colleges that are harder to switch into?
So the statistics are out there, right? So different colleges have different acceptance rates. I forget which one and which are what. So I'm assuming that the College of Architecture, which is really, really competitive. I think Cornell is like #1 in architecture. It'd be almost impossible for me to switch into, right? If I was coming from a math background. But if I was switching from, I don't know, like if I was in computer science and I was switching from the arts college to the engineering college, it would be pretty easy. Does that make sense? So it's very like a case-to-case basis kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, of course.
Gabriel, it's your turn to ask.
All right, cool. So like, when you were in high school, what was your dream school?
UC Berkeley, actually, which was funny because I got into Berkeley and then I chose Cornell over it.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you asked that in particular?
Well, I guess I had a follow-up question. What made you choose Cornell over Berkeley?
Honestly, don't tell my mom. Is because it was far away. Like I don't mean that as an insult, but it's more like I wanted to explore, right? I wanted to be my own person, be somewhere else. I thought the East Coast would be pretty cool. And I don't regret it. I think that I really matured as a person being so far away, as opposed to going to Berkeley, which is a 30-minute BART ride from Fremont, something like that. I think that being so close to home would have kind of let me depend on my parents a lot more. It also, I got to see what it's like to have seasons. I got to meet a lot of people from around the world. I have friends from like Japan and Malaysia and Korea and Europe now. Not to say that those kind of kids don't go to Berkeley, but I think that being out there and having fewer friends to begin with made the transition, or made that like gave me more incentive to go out and like meet more people, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So are there any other senior questions? Because if not, we're gonna move on to general Q&A. I think we can move on to general questions.
Cool. So by the way, there's like this thumbs button thing on Slido that you can just click, and then I think I'll see which ones are more popular. But I'm just going to take it from the top. So I answered the why did I choose Cornell question. I'll talk about the did I enjoy campus life. Yes, I really did. I think Cornell is the good thing about Cornell is that it's a campus that's connected. So a lot of colleges are integrated within the city, which is really cool. But because the campus is just one big connected thing, you run into friends a lot. So, just walking through campus from one class to another, you run into your friends. I also really enjoyed like the I don't know how to describe it other than the vibe, right? It's like people there work hard and play hard kind of thing. It's kind of cheesy to say, but it's true. So they studied when they needed to, and they understood the value of doing well in class. But they also, when classes are over, they're not still thinking about classes. They're thinking about, hey, do you want to take a road trip here, or do you want to like go to salsa night on Tuesdays or something like that? So I really, really enjoyed that. One thing that I wish Cornell had more was downtown. So Ithaca is kind of like in the middle of nowhere. So there was like a college town area, but it was not very large. I think there's like 10 different shops that I would go to, which isn't very many, right? Over 4 years, the shops get kind of boring. So going to like a college in a bigger city would have been pretty fun too. But because of that, there were a lot more like gatherings at homes. So like if your friend had an apartment or a house, they would host a gathering, which was pretty cool. Which I don't think people do if they lived in a bigger city. Cool. Do you own any Canada Goose? Should we get it if we go there? Funny story. So no, I don't own Canada Goose. But when I went to Cornell, so for those of you that don't know, Canada Goose is like this $1,000 jacket that's supposedly really warm. I wouldn't know because I don't own one. But when I was there, I saw everyone wearing this jacket, and it had this logo on it, Canada Goose. And I was thinking to myself, wow, everyone's part of the same club. That's so interesting. There's like 500 of them so far I've seen. But turns out it just means that they paid $1,000 for a jacket that they don't need. So should we get it if we go there? I say no. There's plenty of good jackets. Oh, but do invest in winter gear. You're gonna thank yourself for putting in an extra $100, $200 into your boots and your jacket because it's gonna last you 4 years and is gonna keep you alive. But you can get a same quality Canada Goose jacket, or like same quality as a Canada Goose jacket for like half the price. Like $500 jacket is still expensive, but it's $500. You're gonna get a good jacket. Why did you choose computer science for your major at Cornell? So I actually didn't want to do computer science when I first got there. So like I said, you don't have to declare your major until your second year. I wanted to do computational biology. So that is kind of similar, but very different. It involves like protein modeling, predicting protein folding and things like that. But what happened was that I went to career administration, and I talked to professors, and I was like, oh, like, what do you think of computational biology? And basically they said it was not a great choice at Cornell. The reason why is because Cornell's medical school is in New York City. So it's a separate campus away from the college. So what that means is that all the professors that would be doing medicine are not on campus, which means you can't do research. Or if you were going to do research, you have to do research with the vet school, which is okay, but not the best. So my plan was, okay, I'll just do the more general version of computer science. And if I want to still continue computational biology, I could, after I graduate, get a master's or a PhD in biology, which I didn't end up doing. I'm trying to remember why. I think I mean, I hate to say, I think the biggest one was financials. So I had an internship. I got two internships. So the one with Incenta, my sophomore year to junior year, I was choosing between Incenta and another internship in computational biology. And when I compared the salaries and the locations and everything, it just like was not feasible to do computational biology. So I continued with computer science. Let's see. How has the pandemic affected you personally and career-wise? Any tips or tricks to maintain networks / build new relationships? That's a good question. Pandemic. It's hasn't affected me career-wise, I would say. I think that the nice thing about programming and software engineering is that you can do everything from home. Personally, yeah, I haven't seen my friends in a while, other than like video chat and everything. So I would say that I'm definitely fortunate that I haven't been affected too badly by the pandemic, given just the job that I work. Any tips or tricks to maintain networks / build new relationships? So maintaining networks is hard. I would say well, first off, I wouldn't call it maintaining networks. I feel like that kind of waters it down. I would call them, friendships, right? Or, acquaintances, right? Because that gives you more of an idea of what they actually are, right? You're trying to maintain a friendship, which, goes into just talk to them, be friendly. I would say don't burn bridges is probably the biggest one, right? You want to always kind of leave the door open, right? I know for me that I have a bunch of friends all over the world now. And what's nice is that if I ever visit in the area, I know that even though I haven't spoken to them in years, I can message them and be like, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? Right? That's a great way to maintain that network, right? By just like meeting them and kind of dropping in every once in a while. Building new relationships, I would say put yourself out there, right? Whenever I have the kind of choice to like, oh, should I go out and do this event or should I not? Like half of me or more than half of me is like, no, it'd be so nice to stay in. But then I just kind of like this rule where it's like, oh, I should just do it. Right? Like Nike slogan, just do it. Cool. Let's keep going. How did you get into a hackathon? A lot of hackathons are just available, so you can just sign up. I think it depends on the hackathon on whether you need to like submit a resume or something. At which point it's very similar to like applying to internships, right? You want your resume to show that you know what you're doing, right? You want to have side projects and know programming languages, show that you're going to build something cool. But there are a lot of hackathons that are just like, we want you to come. So you just sign up and then you go. A lot of the hackathons are pretty cool too. So I did one it's called PenApps. It was hosted by the University of Pennsylvania. Basically, I signed up. I didn't really do anything special, and then they said, "Okay, yeah, you can come." And also, we're gonna like book you a bus. So they paid for my bus and my lodging, and I just went to Pennsylvania for a weekend. That was pretty cool. I know this one's new and not upvoted, but do you have to be in CS to do a hackathon? No. You could be a designer. You can be in math. You can do anything as long as you know how to program. What made you stand out from other applicants? This seems fairly general, but I'm assuming it means like for internships. I think, like I said before, the project team was really valuable. I think there weren't very many people working on like a nano satellite. So finding something like that really, I mean, I noticed the difference because when I was a freshman talking to these recruiters, they wouldn't give me the time of the day. But then once I said that, oh, I have this experience, that's when they started paying more attention to me. And then also knowing relevant technologies and like having the right skills. So a lot of it is like if you go online and you read job postings and they have these preferred qualifications, you don't need to have all of them, but if you have like one or two of them, that at least makes you stand out. And then also knowing how to talk to them. So I think being confident, you know, really makes you a better applicant. And I can talk more about this if people are interested in it, because I did a bunch of campus recruiting for Google for the past couple of years. What makes you stand out for Cornell? So I think that my extracurriculars were pretty much what carried me. I wasn't really good academically. So Cornell was one of my reach schools, actually. So my extracurriculars included like martial arts, chess, and music. So chess, I started the chess club at my school. And then the other two I just did for a while and had like the certifications, right? So like I got a black belt in martial arts, and I passed some level in violin. And then also I didn't take very many APs in high school actually, but I took a few and I did well in them. And I also had like this upward trajectory in my GPA from freshman year to senior year in high school. So like my freshman year, I did pretty poorly. I think I got like I don't remember, but I did pretty poorly. I'm pretty sure it's because I had a girlfriend at the time and it just made my grades sink. But then once I got better at that, I just did better. And then I pointed that out in my college applications that, oh, I did better over time from freshman year to senior year. And then I also have these extracurriculars, which I think helped. The location of Cornell affect the amount of internship opportunities? Not at all. So every big tech company goes to Cornell to recruit. I think Cornell attracts a lot of recruiters because of its like the academic standing. How stressful? It's very stressful. But I can't say whether it's any more or less stressful than other schools. But I remember that there are definitely very difficult times where it's just I have too much work, basically. The nice thing is that you have control over how stressful your semester is going to be. You can sign up for as many classes as you want or as few classes as you want. And like I said, it's your prerogative to figure out how much is too much, right? But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's very stressful. Let's see. How did you like the weather? It was okay. It was really cold, but I'm glad that I experienced that. I think that growing up in California, you just kind of like really take the sun for granted. It's like, oh, it's a nice day. It's always a nice day, whatever. But after going to Cornell, it was whenever the sun comes out, like you really celebrate it. You go out and you like have fun and play frisbee because it's a nice day, and they never happen. So I'm glad I did that. How did you find the companies to start off with? Did you find out by a friend or did you research it? Oh, the small companies. I researched it. So I went online. I think I found Incentive through monster.com. They don't pay me anything, but I use monster.com. I think Indeed also works. I think that small companies are small companies because no one knows about them, right? So it's a lot easier to get an internship there. So that's why I vouch for those. How's the food at Cornell? It's really good. I think there's like rankings on how good food is. Cornell's like up there. I think this matters to me, but like the amount of Asian food is also good too. Like in the downtown areas, there's a lot of restaurants that serve Asian food. So I was pretty happy with that. And there's just like more and more every year. Let me drink some water. We have 2 minutes. Let me read through which ones of these I want to answer. Let me answer this one. Is it easier to get into Cornell for arts and sciences versus engineering? I don't know. Like I said, the numbers are out there, like statistics on how to get in. I do want to say that there's no difference in the degree. I was kind of worried about getting a degree from arts and sciences versus engineering. But in terms of employability, in terms of like the curricula you do, there's just no difference. So I would imagine that the admissions is also the same. But I wouldn't stress about that, because I think if there's any difference, it would be like by a factor of 1%, if at all. What do you think Cornell values the most from a student? If I can be facetious, I mean their money, right? They want to charge you money for getting an education. But I think to actually answer the question, I think that Cornell really values well-rounded students. I think I touched on this twice already. For example, Cornell forces you to learn how to swim. That's weird. Why would they want you to learn how to swim? It's because they want you to be a well-rounded person. So Cornell has a swim test that you have to pass to graduate, which you shouldn't have a problem with if you grew up in California, hopefully. I think Cornell also offers just like a wide variety of classes. You can take a class on like mushrooms, you can take a class on wines, you can take a class on archery. There's just like so many random classes that you can take, and they encourage you to take that are outside of actually doing what you want to do for a job. Okay, this is 8 o'clock. How many questions? I'm gonna do one more. Let's read this. Is there a lot of boba there? There are 3 boba shops. That one doesn't count. Let me answer other ones. Was your BA MEng degree pathway an accelerated degree program? Yes, it was. It's called the Early Masters of Engineering program at Cornell. So that's why I was able to do both degrees in 4 years. You can look it up. I think it's just called Early MEng or Early Masters of Engineering, and it gives you more details there. One more. Let's do one more. What are some special programs, events, academic opportunities at Cornell? What makes Cornell different / special from other universities? Okay. Special programs. For me, personally, I really like the project team. That's what I mentioned before. The building the nano satellite, I don't think a lot of universities have that. I think that Cornell really, really values research as well. There are a lot of universities that do, but also a lot of universities that don't have the strong research backing. So, for example, I did research in human-computer interaction, which is like fairly cutting edge. And I was lucky that Cornell even offered that. Like, there's a professor that enjoyed it and wanted me to work in their lab. I've been told that I think I can answer all the questions if I want. Okay, I will. And you can drop off if you want as well. I won't take any offense. Let's see. Do I still keep in contact with any professors, mentors, college, or previous jobs? Professors? No, but I wish I did. I've always considered doing a PhD. And to do a PhD, you need a recommendation from a professor. And because I don't have any relationships with them, it would just be so awkward for me to email them and be like, hey, do you remember me from 5 years ago? Yeah, can you write me a recommendation to join this college? And they'll be like, who are you? So when you go to college, I highly recommend to build those relationships, become a TA, join the research lab, whatever, and then just like maintain that relationships, because professors are cool people. They know a lot. They're like the top of their field. Mentors, yes. So I had a lot of mentors. I would call them friends. And, I'm still friends with them. I think that that's easier, right? You make friends through these clubs. You find mentorship. You like join these mentorship programs that they have. They assign you with someone. You meet up, and then you just build a friendship there. And it, like I keep saying it's just like making friends. But I guess for some concrete advice on how to maintain relationships, I would say, let me think. I would say building like multiple points of contact with that person. So if you're only friends with that one person and that's your only point of contact, it's a lot harder to maintain, as opposed to if you have like 5 mutual friends with that person, then you'll just be in contact with that person more. So like building like literally a network will probably help. 2 more. How did you find the small companies to start off with? I answered this one, sorry. How was your residential experience at Cornell? Like how did I like living there? It was good. So there are a bunch of different dorms on campus of varying quality. I was lucky to be placed into one of the newer dorms, so it just had like newer appliances, newer equipment, better rooms. But even the older ones are pretty good as well. After that, I chose to live off campus, which I really preferred. All the apartments are within walking distance to the campus, so I never had to walk further than like 25 minutes, which is not bad. In terms of like pricing and housing, it was actually very reasonable compared to the Bay Area. I paid $700 a month for my house, as opposed to now I pay like $1,500 a month for like the same house. I think that it's as good as it gets, I would say, in terms of pricing. So I was pretty happy with the apartments that were at Cornell. All right, and we're done. Sean, do you want to take over?
Yeah. All right. So thanks everyone for joining. This concludes today's webinar. But before everyone goes, next Sunday we'll be having another college talk about someone else's experience. So please be sure. To come back next week. And thanks again, Kevin, for sharing your experiences and answering our questions.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully I was helpful. I just kind of rambled.
Yeah, it was very helpful. Okay, so we're done now.
All right. Thanks, everyone.